This is Inside Douglas County on News Radio 1240 KQEN. It's our daily in-depth look at people and issues that are shaping Douglas County. Now, Inside Douglas County on News Radio 1240 KQEN.
Afternoon, and thanks for being here, wrapping up this week's Inside Douglas County programs. And if I said the name Bloodworks Northwest, what does that mean to you? Some people may know, some of you may not. And so, hence the conversation today with Annette Casper, the Regional Director, and Mark Smith, the Business Development Manager. They're both out of Eugene. Thanks for coming down today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
And I guess, Annette, let's start with you. What is Bloodworks Northwest?
Yeah, Bloodworks Northwest is an independent nonprofit organization that just so happens to support all of the local hospitals in this area. So we're responsible for ensuring that there's a blood supply in Douglas County.
And how long has it been around?
Bloodworks Northwest has been around for about 70 years. And it started up in Seattle, so it was Puget Sound Blood Center, which became Bloodworks Northwest as it has expanded. And
it's an interesting area to be in because when you talk about hospitals and medical situations, and even things whether they're really serious and intense or even more routine, non-life-threatening situations, the need for blood is always a big deal.
Oh my gosh, it is huge. And especially during the summertime. People don't realize, but donations go down in the summertime. And we had an incident actually over the 4th of July week where nationally the blood supply was so low that if we had had a national emergency, there was not enough blood nationally to cover that. So if, God forbid, earthquake or a terrorist attack had happened, there would not have been enough blood.
Wow. Now, how many hospitals in the Northwest do you guys work with?
About 90.
Wow.
Yeah. So what it makes us special is that we are your local blood center. So what is collected in the Pacific Northwest stays in the Pacific Northwest. So we like to think of it as kind of your farm to table. We keep it local.
And Mark, how'd you get involved in all this?
Oh, sure. I had a former coworker, contact me saying that there was this great organization. You might want to check it out. And I was a project manager at that time. And so I came over, and it turned out it was Bloodworks Northwest. Formerly, it was called Lane Blood Center, and before that was Lane Blood Memorial Bank. And that's where I first donated blood, was when I was 16 in high school. I donated blood. My dad has always raised me with the thought that I needed to give back to the community, so I was very thrilled about joining an organization that I know that was doing a great job in the community.
So essentially, it sounds like you have what was going on in Lane County, what was going on in Puget Sound, and eventually that all kind of meshed together?
Yes. Yeah. We about 5 years ago, we did a merger. And the main reason for merging with them was that an independent blood center, as the blood market changed, could not support all of the local hospitals. We needed a much larger organization in order to do that. And so Lane merged with Bloodworks Northwest, and it gave Bloodworks Northwest a larger reach into the state of Oregon, which is what they were looking for as well.
Now, it seems like people hear periodically, you mentioned it a minute ago, about critical blood shortages. The summertime is a big one. Mm-hmm. And, I guess some people would say, why does that keep happening? Why don't more people donate blood?
I think it just becomes, they're busy with holidays, vacations. The kids are out of school, which most people don't realize that our high schools and colleges make up about a quarter of our blood supply. So when they're out of session and we don't have the availability to go and collect at those high schools and universities, it has a huge impact on the blood supply. People, it's sort of, they don't think about it. It's not part of their daily routine. It would be great if we had just that awareness. People really understood that it is the one product that we can't manufacture. And we rely on the goodness of and kindness of individuals to come in and roll up their sleeves for, the donation itself takes about 15 minutes, the whole process an hour at most. And we just rely on people sacrificing that amount of time.
And obviously, some people can't donate blood, and yet many others can.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's a few things that will defer people. Medications. If you've lived in Europe during the 80s, during the mad cow time, that's a permanent deferral for people for right now. And there's only about 40% of our population that actually can donate blood because of various things going on in their lives, medications, whatnot, and only about 10% actually do.
It's interesting how the medication, how that just plays into things. I remember probably 5 years ago, I was on a number of medications, and one or two of them put me on that list for 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't any life, it wasn't a huge situation, but it was just something that they were dealing with, and because of what medicines I needed to take, and I know some of that gets really thick into the weeds with science, but there's a lot of reasons for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why, if you can give blood, it's so important that you do, because there's so many people in our population that may just have a 1-year deferral or a couple month deferral, but it matters for those that actually can.
Now, you mentioned that high schools are a big deal, and that's probably a surprise to a lot of people. What do you guys do in terms of working with schools to get blood?
Yeah, we have a great scholarship program that we offer to high schools. So students that want to coordinate a blood drive with us, whether it's a group or an individual, we offer scholarships for them. So it's a great program to get students involved. The biggest part of that is actually having students, younger individuals, learn the necessity and the benefits of blood donation. So if we can get them while they're young to understand the importance of that, maybe we can create a lifelong blood donor.
So Mark, what's your role as the business development manager? What kinds of things are you working on?
Sure. A good example is working with high schools. So what I do is I work with different high schools to find out if they would be willing to set up a blood drive with us. The one thing that we try to show is that we have the toolkit for them to use to have a successful blood drive. As Annette mentioned, we also have a very attractive scholarship program so that they can raise money for some club or an individual as well. So what I do is I work with high schools, I work with any organization or group to help show the value that they're giving back to the community by hosting a blood drive, and then I walk them through the process. We recognize that they have a full-time job, so we show them what they need to do. We have the tools in place for them to host a blood drive, and then we also do a lot of the heavy lifting so that they can focus on their real job, but at the same time they're also helping us give blood back to the community.
So what kind of response do you get from young people? I mean, are they maybe more open to donating blood than people would expect?
I find it's really interesting. I find especially with young high school students, a lot of them are afraid to give. They're concerned. They may have heard a fellow student pass out or get really sick. What we do is we let them know the different steps of processing through registration, through the screening process. And then if they are a first-time donor, we have one of our technicians just walk them through each step of what they're doing, taking the blood pressure, putting a cuff on, so that they know that what's going on to their body. We also will have maybe an escort, a chaperone, if you will, keeping the student distracted while they're donating. And then usually afterwards they're going, that wasn't that bad. I don't see what the big deal is.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think students, especially a first-time donor, gets a little fearful of a needle, and once they've done it, that's the 99.9% of them say, well, that wasn't any big deal at all. And then they get the satisfaction of knowing that they potentially saved 3 lives with that one donation.
And explain what you mean by saving 3 lives.
So when you donate a whole blood unit, it's usually divided into its components. Hospitals use plasma, platelets, red cells, and a variety of other blood products. So when you donate your blood, it often is divided into its separate components, which means that 1 pint of blood can be separated into 3 separate components, which would go potentially to 3 separate individuals.
Going to take a break at Inside Douglas County. More when we come back. Annette Casper, the regional director, Mark Smith, the business development manager. We're talking about Bloodworks Northwest. The interview, a podcast after 1 at 541radio.com. 1246 at Inside Douglas County from News Radio 1240 KQEN. Inside Douglas County, 1248. Lars Larson coming up at 1 on Monday's program. A couple members of the Oregon State Legislature are going to be joining us, including State Senator Dallas Hurd and one of the lawmakers out of the Grants Pass area as well. That's on Monday, and other things planned for next week, which I'm sure will include in part the Douglas County Fair, which begins Tuesday as well. We're talking about Bloodworks Northwest. Annette Casper, the regional director, Mark Smith, the business development manager. I was thinking during the break about what you said going in about actually distracting for young people, distracting them during donations. And I'm so used to distracted driving and things being a bad thing, but in this case, distracted donating can be a good thing.
Yes, it gets their mind off their imagination of what could go wrong, and it allows them to be educated. So we, during the donation process, we talk to them about how their blood, what's the next step, the testing process that we do on the blood. It goes through 18 different tests, as well as the impact it's making on lives. So up to 3 lives are impacted. And usually that gets them enough distracted that they don't worry about what's going on.
So, Annette, I don't know if there are stats for this, but in terms of what age group gives blood more than others?
Yeah, there are stats on that. And actually, so you have your high school students, which I told you make up about a quarter. So we have that. Interestingly enough, though, typically they are once a year donators, because that's when you're going into the high schools once or twice a year. The majority of our regular donors who donate multiple times in a year are all of the baby boomer generation. And as you can imagine, that's a problem for us because they're starting to age out. That generation, it was taught that giving blood was a civic duty, and they have a real dedication to giving blood because of that. And I think the younger generations, it wasn't so much taught, and our blood supply has suffered because of that.
So are you doing anything with, like, the millennials, for instance, to take their kind of groove? Now, if I say groove, then I'm going to be like a baby boomer just by saying that. But, they're just what goes with their life and make it more, something they want to do?
Absolutely. We've developed an app for Bloodworks so that they can download the app onto their phone. It's interactive with them. It'll keep track of their donations. They can make appointments on the app. It really is reaching out to them in a way that they're more accustomed to getting reached out to. They don't typically appreciate phone calls and some of the traditional methods of communication. So having that app is really our way of reaching a millennial in a method in which they're used to.
How long have you had that app?
It launched, it's been around for about a year now. It launched last summer. And we have seen a huge success rate with that. We're also doing promotions which would appeal to them. Like right now we have a MacBook promotion going on where anybody who donates with us is automatically registered for a MacBook. So we try and tailor some of our promotions and things that we do for that millennial generations, things that would appeal to them.
A real fun one we had recently was the indoor skydiving, where if you donate, you are eligible to win an experience. So you can indoor skydive, which definitely would appeal to the younger generation.
Where do you indoor skydive?
There's a location up in Beaverton. There is
iFly.
iFly.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we try and do fun things that would appeal to that generation. The other thing that we do is there's a Thank the Donor program that when certain participating hospitals, and we're hoping all of our hospitals will eventually be able to do this, when our blood is delivered, it comes with a little green tag, and the recipient of that blood has the opportunity to say thank you directly to that donor. So they return the green tag to us. We then send that to the donor. So it's anonymous, but it means a lot. And we find that, well, every generation, but particular millennials, like to know what happened after the donation. So having that extra step in there where they know that there was an individual who received that component is enormous.
Wow. Now, talk about how do you guys work with hospitals? How does that relationship work?
Yeah, so we actually have a group in our based out of our Seattle office that manages contracts with the hospitals, and they basically let us know what their needs are for the different blood components. And we locally ensure that we are supplying whatever types of units that they need to support their hospitals. It's like, so we support Mercy Medical. When the tragedy happened at the community college here, we were the ones that supplied the blood to them. The Mercy Medical contacted us and let us know how many units that were needed at the time, or they estimated. And we had a police escort that took all of that blood to Mercy Medical for Umpqua Community College at that time.
Wow. And whether it's situations like that are certainly more extreme and not the norm, but just even the normal situations, you just sort of communicate back and forth, and the blood gets to where the hospital is.
Yes, we have that we maintain certain inventory levels for each of the hospitals, and they mandate what they need. And we supply each of those blood types and different platelets, plasma, cryo, whatever they're asking us for, we make sure that we have that inventory for them.
Now, this is where my lack of scientific knowledge is real obvious. When you have the blood ready to go to a hospital, how long is it in, condition that it can be used? I mean, is there sort of like, is there like a, use
Shelf
by
life?
date? Yeah.
Yes, there definitely is a shelf life for blood. Whole blood units, it's about 45 days. The platelets are only 5 days, and they can't be refrigerated. So those, they're in demand. We need constant platelet donors because of that. They're most commonly used for our cancer patients. And so there's a relatively short shelf life for blood, and that's why having consistent donation is so important, because you can't keep it for 2 years. It needs to be refreshed constantly.
About a minute left on Inside Douglas County. If somebody is interested in connecting with BloodWorks and hosting a blood drive in this area, what do you do?
Yeah, there's actually 2 ways. You can call me directly. My name is Mark Smith. Phone number is 458-210-3188. Or you can go onto our website at bloodworksnw.org, and there is a link on how to host a blood drive.
And just that simple, and then you get connected and go from there.
Exactly. You just click on the link. You look for my name or the Douglas County link. Then you just would contact me, and then I would work through the process of having you host a blood drive.
All right, out of time. Annette Casper, Regional Director, Mark Smith, Business Development Manager from BloodWorks Northwest. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
1257 at News Radio 1240 KQEN.
You've been listening to Inside Douglas County on News Radio 1240 KQEN, a daily look at the people and issues that are shaping Douglas County. The show will be available as a podcast in just a few minutes at 541radio.com. So share it and let others who weren't listening live know about today's show. Inside Douglas County is a public affairs presentation of Brook Communications, your home for Douglas County's news team. News Radio 1240 KQEN.